Today, we are diving headfirst into a really unsettling mystery from the deep heart of the Amazon. It's a place where ancient folklore, unbelievably advanced technology, and covert operations all collide in the most terrifying way imaginable. Okay, I want you to picture this. You are in one of the most remote, isolated places on the entire planet. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, and this sound of just pure terror cuts through the jungle. Now, the villagers had been on edge for weeks. They even had armed patrols. But nobody, and I mean nobody, was ready for what came out of the darkness. The men of the local Iquitos tribe, they grab their hunting rifles and they rush outside. But what they see, well, it wasn't human. They were looking at these towering beings, covered head to toe in some kind of strange, dark armor, moving without even touching the ground. And the only thing you could really see were these glowing yellow eyes, just fixed on their target. So the villagers, they do what anyone would do. They open fire. But get this, the bullets, shotgun pellets, rifle rounds, they just pinged right off the armor like it was nothing. And then, just as fast as they showed up, the figures just silently rose up into the air and vanished back into the jungle canopy. And when the chaos was over, they found a young girl on the ground. She was bleeding, but not from a scratch or a bite. It was a clean, precise, almost surgical incision on her neck. She had somehow survived an encounter with the things the locals now call los pelacadas, which translates to the face peelers. So what in the world happened in that village? So what did people actually see during these terrifying nights? Let's break down the accounts from the people who were there, because the details are not only incredibly strange, they're incredibly consistent. You know, this wasn't just one person's story. Across multiple villages, people described the exact same thing. 7-foot-tall figures in black armor, these strange elongated helmets that hid their faces, except for those piercing yellow eyes. They said they had red lights on their feet, which seemed to be how they hovered so silently. People saw them leap over entire houses with this impossible agility. The only sound they made was this faint hissing. And if that wasn't enough, villagers also reported seeing these massive acorn-shaped ships just hanging silently in the sky above them. And this is how the story got its absolutely chilling name. The 15-year-old survivor, Talia, she revealed why they were there. This wasn't some random animal attack. Oh no, this was targeted. They were there for a very specific and very gruesome purpose. But here's the detail from Talia's testimony that throws a massive wrench in the whole alien invasion theory. While her attackers were holding her down, she heard them speak to each other, and not in some bizarre alien language, but in Spanish. And she was certain about the accents. One sounded local, from the region. The other, she said, was clearly American. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, for the village elders, this didn't feel like an alien invasion. This felt horribly familiar. It was like an ancient nightmare coming to life. They believed it was the return of the Pishtaco. This is a real legend from Andean folklore, a story about pale-skinned predators who hunted people to harvest their body fat and their life force. To them, these modern attacks just seemed like a high-tech version of that same old horror story. So once this story hit the news, the authorities had to respond. And their official explanation was, well, surprisingly simple and down to earth. The question is, does it hold up to any kind of scrutiny? That's right. The official story from the Peruvian government is that this entire terrifying ordeal was just the work of illegal gold miners. They actually claimed that these miners were using jetpacks to scare the indigenous people away, trying to drive them off of valuable land. But, I mean, that story falls apart the second you compare it to what the witnesses actually said. Commercial jetpacks are deafeningly loud, right? Like a lawnmower strapped to your back. The witnesses described almost total silence. Jetpacks can only stay in the air for a few minutes at best. These things hovered for hours. And anyone who's seen a video of a jetpack knows they are incredibly hard to control, while these attackers moved with a smooth, superhuman agility. It just doesn't add up. And the problems with the miner theory just keep piling up. For one, the motive makes no sense. Illegal miners operate in the shadows. The last thing they want is the world's media showing up, which is exactly what happened. The attacks also happened in places like the city of Nada, where there's no gold to even mine. And finally, after all these encounters, all the gunfire, the villagers never found a single piece of evidence. No body, not one drop of blood, no broken equipment. All they found were these strange oval footprints in the dirt, about twice the size of a normal human's. Okay, so if it wasn't aliens and it clearly wasn't miners, what are we left with? Well, this is where the timeline of events becomes absolutely critical, and it points to a third possibility that is, frankly, even more disturbing. So it turns out that at the exact same time these villages were being terrorized, there was a major military operation going on practically next door. The U.S. military was there working with Peruvian forces on a huge training exercise called Resolute Sentinel 2023. The base of operations for this whole thing was Iquitos, Peru, which is just a short boat ride away from where the attacks were taking place. And get this, the exercise didn't just involve U.S. Marines. It also, very notably, included members of the U.S. Space Force, the branch of the military that deals with the most advanced technology and space-based operations. But here's the kicker. Here is the detail that's impossible to ignore. The military exercise officially ended on July 9th. The very first face peeler attack happened on July 11th. That's a gap of just 2 days. A coincidence? I mean, maybe, but that is a really, really compelling coincidence. Now, the idea of a military unit dressing up in high-tech gear to terrorize civilians, I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But is it? Well, history shows us that there is a very clear and very well-documented precedent for exactly this kind of thing. It's a tactic known as a psychological operation, or a PSYOP for short, and it's a staple of military and intelligence strategy. The whole point is to use fear, local beliefs, and deception to control a situation and achieve a goal without having to fire a shot. And there's a perfect declassified example. Back in the 1950s, the CIA used a local Filipino legend of a vampire monster called the Aswang to fight communist rebels. Their operatives would literally capture a rebel soldier, drain his body of all its blood, and leave the corpse on a trail for his buddies to find. The rebels, who grew up believing in the Aswang, were so terrified they abandoned their positions and fled the area. It was a complete success. So where does all this leave us? Well, we may never know for 100% certain if the attackers were aliens or miners or military operatives in some next-gen suit. But two things are crystal clear. The fear and the trauma experienced by the Iquitos people was absolutely real, and the official explanation from the government just doesn't fit any of the facts. Which leaves us with one final, pretty chilling question. If the face peelers weren't from another planet, but were a human experiment, a field test for some new silent flight technology and fear-based warfare, you just have to ask yourself, what future conflict are they getting ready for? And who's going to be on the receiving end next time?